Welcome to our deep dive, everyone. Today, we're going to be exploring Agile and Scrum. It's a way of working that's really changing how projects, get done these days.
Yeah, it's pretty big shift, moving away from those, rigid plans
Yeah.
and tons of documentation, and instead like embracing this idea of, flexibility and continuous improvement.
Right. And we're going to be uncovering all the core ideas behind Agile, how Scrum even came about, and like what impact it's having. We'll also dig into the Agile Manifesto and see how all of its principles can be applied in different environments.
Yeah, the goal is to really give you a solid understanding of this whole philosophy and how it can be used in lots of different contexts, not just software development.
I think a lot of people, when they hear Agile, they just assume, oh, it's just for tech. But,
Mm-mm.
this deep dive will show how it's actually way broader than that.
Yeah, for sure.
Okay, so let's start with the basics. What is the big difference between Agile and traditional project management? Like waterfall.
Okay, so imagine you're planning a road trip. Waterfall is like super meticulously planning every single detail in advance, like the route, the stops, even like what snacks you're going to have at each mile marker.
Wow.
But agile is more like having the destination in mind, but being totally open to changing your route based on, road closures, discovering a hidden gem along the way, or even like deciding to extend the trip.
Oh, that's a great analogy. It really highlights that flexibility of Agile. So instead of just sticking to this rigid plan, you're constantly adapting and responding to change.
Exactly. And, the source material really emphasizes how Agile values individuals and interactions more than processes and tools. It's about empowering teams to self-organize, to make decisions, and adjust their approach based on what they learn along the way.
So it sounds like Agile is way more collaborative and people-centric than
Yeah.
those traditional methods.
It is, yeah. In fact, there's even this table in the source material that perfectly summarizes those key differences between Agile and Waterfall.
Yep.
For example, it shows how Agile focuses on minimal documentation while Waterfall relies on comprehensive documentation. And Agile prioritizes those requirements based on value and updates them continuously. But Waterfall uses those fixed requirements.
Okay, that makes sense. Agile seems to prioritize delivering value quickly and adapting to change, while Waterfall is more about just sticking to that predetermined plan.
Precisely. And this difference in their approaches leads to different outcomes. Agile methods, they often result in increased productivity, better customer satisfaction, enhanced flexibility, and even less risks.
It's so fascinating how just a simple shift in philosophy can have such a huge impact on project outcomes. But how does this Agile way of thinking even come about? What were its origins?
Well, the source material actually points to this 1986 Harvard Business Review article. It compared a new approach to product development to moving the scrum downfield in rugby.
Ah, that's where the term Scrum comes from.
Yeah.
It's interesting how they use a sports analogy to describe a project management framework.
It's a pretty fitting analogy, actually, considering that Scrum really emphasizes teamwork, flexibility, and a shared goal, just like rugby.
Yeah.
And since that article, Scrum has really evolved, leading to the creation of that Scrum Body of Knowledge Guide in 2013. And that guide provides this really comprehensive framework for implementing Scrum.
And this Scrum framework, as the source material explains, can be applied to portfolios, programs, or even projects in any industry. It's not just limited to software development.
Exactly. It can be used for products, services, or any other deliverable, no matter the size or complexity.
So what makes Scrum so versatile and adaptable? What are its core principles?
Well, Scrum is built on three pillars: transparency, inspection, and adaptation. And these are beautifully illustrated in figures 2.1, 2.2, and 2.3 of the source material.
Oh, those figures really help to visualize how these pillars all work together to create this continuous feedback loop.
Yeah, exactly. Transparency ensures that everyone's on the same page, about the project's progress and any challenges that they're facing. Then there's inspection, which involves regular checkpoints to assess the work and to identify areas that need improvement. And then adaptation, well, adaptation empowers the team to adjust their approach based on what they learned during that inspection phase.
So it's this constant cycle of learning and improvement, which is key to staying agile in such a rapidly changing environment.
Precisely. And remember, self-organization plays a vital role here. Agile teams, they're empowered to make decisions and organize their work themselves, which leads to increased motivation and responsibility, as highlighted in Figure 2.5.
It's so interesting how Agile emphasizes both flexibility and self-organization. It seems to really trust teams to find the best way to achieve their goals.
Well, that's a key part of the Agile philosophy. It's about creating an environment where individuals and interactions are valued, and that leads to a much more collaborative and innovative workplace.
This all makes total sense, but I'm kind of curious about one thing. The source mentions these three dimensions of collaboration in Agile: awareness, articulation, and appropriation. Can you maybe elaborate on those?
Sure. So awareness is like all about understanding each other's roles and responsibilities and expertise within the team. Articulation focuses on like clearly communicating ideas, progress, and challenges. And then appropriation is about taking ownership of those tasks and decisions and like feeling empowered to contribute and make a difference.
So it's like building this shared understanding, communicating well, and empowering those team members to take action.
Exactly. And these dimensions are crucial for any successful collaboration, not just agile projects. They create this foundation of trust and shared purpose. And that allows teams to work really effectively and achieve those goals.
This is all really insightful. We've covered a lot of ground already, but I want to make sure we touch upon the Agile Manifesto. It seems to be like a crucial document for understanding the values and principles behind this whole approach.
It is. It's like a cornerstone of the whole agile movement. We'll dig into those four core values of the manifesto and like what makes them so revolutionary compared to traditional approaches.
That's good.
It has, yeah. The Agile Manifesto, it outlines these like four core values that really prioritize individuals and interactions over processes and tools, working software over comprehensive documentation, customer collaboration over contract negotiation, and responding to change over following a plan.
So it's really about shifting the focus from those rigid procedures to people and collaboration and adaptability.
Exactly, yeah. It's about acknowledging that in like a complex world, things change, and we need to be able to respond to those changes effectively. The manifesto, it kind of challenged that traditional idea that we can just plan everything up front and just execute a plan without any like deviation.
Which makes sense because in reality, things rarely go exactly according to plan.
Yeah.
There are always those unexpected challenges and opportunities that pop up.
Absolutely. And Agile, it embraces those like unexpected twists and turns as opportunities for learning and improvement. It's about being flexible and adapting to change rather than like rigidly sticking to a plan that might not even be relevant anymore.
Okay, so the Agile Manifesto, it lays the groundwork for this new way of thinking. But what are the actual practical benefits of adopting this Agile approach? What difference does it actually make in real world projects?
Well, the source material, it lists like 14 key benefits of Agile, which is pretty impressive. And, while we won't go through all of them, it's worth highlighting a few that are particularly relevant to like our discussion.
Yeah, let's pick a few that might resonate with our listener. What about increased productivity and quality? Those seem like pretty universal goals.
They are. And Agile helps achieve those goals by breaking down projects into like smaller, more manageable iterations called sprints. This allows teams to really focus on delivering value like incrementally and getting that feedback early and often. And by constantly inspecting and adapting, teams can quickly identify and address any issues, which leads to higher quality deliverables.
So it's like having this built-in quality control through the whole process, rather than just waiting till the end to find out that something's not working.
Exactly. And by empowering those teams to like self-organize and make decisions, Agile kind of fosters the sense of ownership and accountability, which can really boost productivity. People are just more motivated to do their best work when they feel like they have a stake in the outcome.
That makes a lot of sense. And speaking of outcomes, what about customer satisfaction? Does Agile have a positive impact on that as well?
It absolutely does. Remember, one of the Agile Manifesto's core values is customer collaboration over contract negotiation. Agile methodologies, they emphasize continuous engagement with those customers throughout the project, ensuring that their needs and feedback are incorporated into the entire development process.
So instead of just presenting the customer with a finished product at the very end, they're actually involved every step of the way.
Exactly. This iterative approach, it ensures that the final product is something that the customer truly wants and values, leading to higher levels of satisfaction. Plus, by delivering value in smaller increments, customers, they see tangible progress and can provide feedback early on, which helps prevent costly rework later.
That's like a win-win for everyone involved.
Yeah.
And while we're on the topic of benefits, The source material also mentions reduced risks and faster time to market. How does Agile even achieve those?
Well, that iterative nature of Agile, with its continuous feedback loops, allows teams to identify and mitigate risks really early on. By breaking down those projects into smaller chunks, teams can assess those potential problems much more effectively and adjust their course as needed. This really proactive approach helps avoid those major setbacks down the line and keeps projects on track.
So it's like having this built-in risk management system.
Exactly. And by delivering value incrementally, Agile allows for faster time to market. Instead of waiting for like a big final reveal, teams can release like working features or products much sooner, allowing them to gather market feedback and iterate based on real-world usage.
It's like getting a product into the hands of customers sooner, getting their feedback, and then just like iterating based on what you learn.
Precisely. And this like speed and adaptability, it can be really crucial in today's fast-paced business environment, where being first to market can often give you that competitive edge.
All of these benefits sound great, but they seem to be kind of geared towards like smaller teams working on relatively contained projects. What about larger organizations with like multiple teams and complex projects? Can Agile even scale to that level?
That's a great question. And the answer is yes. Agile can absolutely be scaled to those larger organizations. The source material highlights how Scrum, in particular, can be effectively scaled using additional roles and structures.
Okay, let's dive into that a bit. What kind of roles are we even talking about here?
To manage the complexities of larger projects and ensure alignment among those multiple Scrum teams, you often need roles like Chief Product Owner, Chief Scrum Master, Program Product Owner, Program Scrum Master, Portfolio Product Owner, and Portfolio Scrum Master.
Wow, that's quite a list. It sounds like these roles provide the necessary coordination and oversight to keep things running smoothly at scale.
Exactly. These roles help ensure that everyone is on the same page, that communication is flowing effectively, and that like dependencies between teams are managed efficiently. They essentially act as facilitators and guides, empowering those individual Scrum teams to operate autonomously while still aligning with those overall organizational goals.
So it's not about creating this rigid hierarchical structure, but rather about providing the right level of support and guidance to help teams thrive within a larger, more complex environment.
Precisely. And while those additional roles are crucial for scaling Agile, those fundamental principles of transparency, inspection, and adaptation remain at the heart of the process. It's about fostering an Agile mindset throughout the entire organization, from those individual team members to senior leadership.
This all makes sense, but I'm curious about one thing. We've talked a lot about Scrum, but the source material also mentions these other Agile methodologies like Lean Kanban, Extreme Programming, and Crystal methods. What's even the difference between these approaches?
That's an excellent question. And it's a topic we could easily dedicate a whole deep dive to. But for now, let's just say that while they all fall under that umbrella of Agile, each methodology has its own unique set of principles, practices, and strengths. Scrum, for example, is known for its structured framework and its emphasis on that iterative development. Kanban focuses on visualizing work, limiting work in progress, and maximizing flow. Extreme programming prioritizes technical excellence and frequent releases.
So it's like choosing the right tool for the job. Different projects and teams might benefit from different Agile methodologies depending on their specific needs and goals.
Exactly. And just because a team chooses one methodology doesn't mean they can't borrow elements from others or even adapt their approach over time. The beauty of Agile is its like flexibility and adaptability.
This is also fascinating. I feel like we've barely scratched the surface of the Agile world. Welcome back. We've covered so much ground in this, exploration of Agile and Scrum.
Yeah, we've gone like from the philosophy to the frameworks and even like how it works in big organizations.
And now I'm like really interested in how we can actually apply these Agile principles
Yeah.
to our own work and lives. It all sounds so great in theory, but how do we make it practical?
It's really about taking those core values and like finding ways to integrate them into your daily routines and your projects.
Okay, so let's start with like transparency. How do we actually make that a tangible practice instead of just some abstract concept?
One way is to, get comfortable with visualizing your work and your progress. Think about using tools like, Kanban boards or even just like simple to-do lists just to make your tasks and goals more visible.
So it's about like getting things out of your head and onto something like a format where you can see them clearly and track your progress better.
Exactly. This not only like helps you stay organized, but it also makes it so much easier to identify those roadblocks and to communicate your progress to other people.
That makes sense. And speaking of communication, that's like a really big part of Agile, right?
Absolutely. Regular communication is key to, maintaining transparency and keeping everyone on the same page, whether it's daily stand-up meetings or weekly progress reports or just like quick check-ins with your colleagues. Just make sure you're communicating effectively and frequently.
It's interesting how those daily stand-ups, which are so common in Scrum, can be adapted for like even individual work too. Maybe like a stand-up with myself every morning, just to set those priorities for the day.
Oh, that's a great idea. It's really all about just finding what works best for you and your own personal workflow.
Okay, so we've talked about transparency and communication. What about inspection and adaptation? How do those principles like translate into actual steps?
Well, inspection is all about like taking the time to reflect on your work and identifying areas for improvement. It's about like asking yourself questions. What went well? What could have been better? What did I learn?
So it's like this built-in feedback loop where you're constantly evaluating your own process and looking for ways to optimize it.
Precisely. And then adaptation is about like putting those insights into action, being willing to adjust your approach based on what you've learned. Don't be afraid to experiment with new tools and new techniques, new workflows.
So Agile isn't just about following a set of rules. It's about like constantly learning and evolving.
Exactly. It's about embracing that mindset of continuous improvement and being open to change.
This all makes sense, but I think sometimes one thing that might hold people back from adopting this Agile approach is the fear of feeling overwhelmed. It's easy to get caught up in the idea of doing everything perfectly and trying to implement all those Agile practices at
Oh,
once.
that's a totally valid concern. And it's really important to remember that Agile isn't a one-size-fits-all approach. Just start small. Experiment with like a few principles or practices that resonate with you, and then gradually incorporate more as you gain experience and confidence.
So it's like building muscle. You start with lighter weights and you slowly increase the intensity as you get stronger.
Yeah, that's a great analogy. And don't forget to like celebrate your successes along the way. Every small improvement is a step in the right direction.
This has been such an insightful deep dive. We've explored the philosophy, all the frameworks, and even like the practical applications of Agile and Scrum.
And we've learned how this whole approach can help us become more adaptable, collaborative, and ultimately more successful in just about anything we do.
I'm definitely walking away from this with like a fresh perspective and tons of strategies to try out. Thanks for joining us on this journey into the world of Agile.
It's been my pleasure. And remember, the Agile journey is all about continuous learning and growth. So keep experimenting, keep iterating, and keep embracing change.